Kelsey. This is my channel, The Fancy Hat Lady Reads. I am wearing one of my fancy booktube hats, and today I'm doing my collective book haul for the months of September and October. I acquired 11 books over these 2 months, and they're from a wide variety of different sources, and I'm really excited about a lot of them. And so this is going to be a very fun book haul. Now the first book I want to show you is one book that I already owned a copy of, but this is a replacement better copy that I snagged on impulse because I saw it on sale for $1. And this is a pretty older hardcover edition of Beauty by McKinley, which is going to be just much nicer to have than my old ratty childhood paperback that had a kind of ugly cover and then like got a bunch of water damage. So I've donated that old copy and I'm replacing it with this one. This isn't the first edition of this book, but it is the same cover art, the original cover art from the first edition. And I just think it's very, very nice looking. So I am happy to add this to my McKinley collection. And then I have only a couple more used books. The first is another one that I grabbed for $1, and that is The Hallowed Hunt by Lois McMaster Bujold, which is the third book in the World of the Five Gods novels series that starts with The Curse of Chalion, which I have read. This one, I believe, is a prequel to the first two, but it's third in publication and reading order. And if you pay very close attention to my channel and my book hauls, which I'm hoping no one pays this close attention, but you may be saying, Kelsey, you don't own the second book yet. And I acknowledge that this is true and it is a problem. The next book in this series is the next book by Bujold that I'm planning on reading, and no, I don't have a copy of it yet. I'm working on that. I would like to find the mass market paperback edition of Paladin of Souls, because this hardcover is like massive. And then the last of the used books that I have is Wicked Like a Wildfire by Lana Popović. I don't know if that's how you pronounce her name. I'll have to look that up before I read this. But this is a young adult magical realism book that came out last year, I think. It was a 2017 release. Let me check on that. Yes, this was a 2017 release. This is the first in a duology, I think, and I believe the second book is out now. I was attracted from the first by the cover of this book, and it just sounds very me-ish because it sounds like this is about a family who have like magic that's tied to the arts and creativity. I haven't heard much about this book or seen reviews of it since it came out, but it seems like the sort of thing where like even if it's not the best of the best, it's close enough to like my sort of niche happy place that I will probably enjoy it. Now the rest of the books in this haul are going to be new books, and some of them come with stories. One of the ones that comes with a bit of a story is Worlds Seen in Passing, 10 Years of Tor.com short fiction, which is this like massive chunker of an anthology of like some of the best short fiction that's been published on Tor.com over 10 years. I've read a few of the stories in this collection before, but there are a ton that I haven't read. And so the story here is that I went to an event at the New York Public Library celebrating the release of this book. Several of the authors in this book were there and read from their stories and, you know, talked about their work in a panel discussion setting. So Seth Dickinson was there, Maria Devana Headley was there, Genevieve Valentine was there, and Kaya Shante Wilson was there. Those were the authors who were present. And I knew in advance that there were not going to be copies of this book for sale at the event, so I was sort of resigned to the fact that, you know, I was just going to listen to the panel. But then they did have 4 copies that they gave away in a raffle. So I entered the raffle and I won one of the copies. So I was just over the moon to end up leaving that event with a copy of this book signed by several of the authors. So I'm very happy to have this and grateful to Tor.com for hosting that raffle giveaway. Now, another event that I went to in September was the Brooklyn Book Festival. I only spent part of the day there. I caught one panel that was very, very interesting. It was a panel of fantasy authors that included Danielle Clayton, Melissa Albert, and Kay Arsenault Rivera. And so that was fun, and I was also delighted to meet two other booktubers there who are in the New York area. Those are Jocelyn from Yogi with a Book and Bethany from Beautifully Bookish Bethany. They are both super smart and well-spoken and great, lovely people, so I will link both of their channels down below. You should check them out. And then, of course, I bought books. I only bought 3 books, and they're all from the same place. I noticed earlier in the afternoon that Small Beer Press had a booth at the Brooklyn Book Festival, and I browsed and I was like, ooh, I'm definitely coming back for things later in the afternoon when I have time. They had a table of books that were discounted for like a 3 for $20 promotion, and then when I came back later in the day, it had been discounted further to 3 for $10, so I got 3 books for $10. So the one that I was most like gung-ho enthusiastic about finding, I would have paid $10 for this book just on its own, was A Young Woman in a Garden, which is a short story collection by Delia Sherman. Delia Sherman is an author who I've read like maybe 1 short story from and really liked it, and have been meaning to read more of her work for like ever. These are, I think, all fantasy stories. They look really, really gorgeous. I think several of them are going to be fairy tale-ish. And I know that Rachel from Colonnati really loved this collection and has told me that I will like it as well. So I'm very, very pleased about this. Next is another short story collection that I actually didn't even know existed until I saw it there on the table. It is called Prophecies, Libels, and Dreams, Stories of Califa by Ysabeau S. Wilce. Ysabeau S. Wilce is the author of like a young adult or middle grade-ish fantasy trilogy, the Flora trilogy, the first of which is Flora Segunda, and I know I read that first book when I was in high school. I don't remember much about it, except that I think it was kind of weird in a way that I kind of appreciate more now that I'm an adult than I did when I was a teenager. I think it featured like a really bizarro house. I might be remembering this all wrong. But anyways, this is an adult story collection that takes place in the same world, though I have been told that I do not need to know anything about that trilogy in order to read this. I think that this fantasy world is like kind of bizarre, wacky, whimsical, alternate history. And this collection looks like it's really interestingly put together because it's sort of presented as edited and annotated by Ysabeau S. Wilce, who is of course actually the author of the collection, but I think it's sort of this meta presentation of her as like an in-world historian of Califa who's like collected these stories and annotated them for you. There are footnotes. I love me some fantasy with footnotes. So this looks like something I might really, really enjoy, and I'm super excited to have discovered it. And then I still needed to pick a 3rd book, so I kind of went out on a limb with book number 3 and grabbed something that I don't really know what it is about. And that is Cloud and Ashes, 3 Winters' Tales by Greer Gilman. This is one of those books where like all of the descriptions on the book, all of the blurbs, are like about the style of the writing and not like what it's actually about, so I have no clue what this is about. I know that it's like 3 stories, 3 sections, but I don't know if those 3 portions are like 3 parts of a whole or if they're really 3 separate novellas. But the contents in here are Jackdaw's Paw, A Crowd of Bone, and Unleaving. And what it says on the front page, I'm just going to read it to you, is that it's a slow whirlwind of language, a button box of words, a mythic, playful, and erudite Joycean fable that invites immersion, study, revisitation, and delight. To step into the world of Cloud is to be beguiled by the bright flashes, witty turns, and shadowy corners of the human imagination. In Gilman's intricate prose, myth and fable live, breathe, and dance as they do nowhere else. these three winter's tales reach back to the richness of Shakespeare, and readers will rejoice in Gilman's inventive and entrancing counterplay of high myth and bawdry. So that just seems like something that could not help but be my next new favorite thing, even though I still have no clue what these stories are actually about. This also did apparently win the Tiptree Award, which is interesting. So I'm curious and excited about this. It's blurbed by Margot Lanigan and Catherine M. Valenti and Theodora Goss. I don't see how this can go wrong for me. So those were what I got at the Brooklyn Book Festival. I also had 2 pre-orders that came in the month of October. I believe these are my only 2 pre-orders for the entire calendar year of 2018, and they're both October books. There were a couple other books in the year that I would have pre-ordered, except that I knew they were going to have like launch events in New York that I could go to and buy the books there. But these are my 2 online pre-orders for the year. The first is Blanca y Roja by Anna Marie McLemore. I'm super excited for this. This is, of course, a young adult magical realism standalone, like all of her novels. This one, though, is specifically a fairy tale retelling, which I don't think any of her previous books have been. This is supposed to be Snow White and Rose Red meets Swan Lake, and I'm very excited for it. The cover is super pretty. Both of the other books of hers that I've read have been 5-star reads for me, so she's like an automatic auto-buy pre-order author for me at this point. And then the second book that I pre-ordered is sort of on the opposite end of the spectrum of pre-orders, where I'm going out on a limb a bit with this one. I'm very excited, and this is A Conspiracy of Truths by Alexandra Rowland. This is her traditionally published debut. I believe she has something that was self-published sometime before this, but this is her first traditionally published novel, and I have never gone so quickly from having never heard of an author before to pre-ordering their book. So this is apparently a fantasy novel about a traveling storyteller who is like accused of witchcraft and espionage and has to tell stories to save his life, and also there's like apparently political intrigue and shenanigans. And this just seems to have so many things that appeal to me. I gather that the first-person narrator is incredibly snarky, so I think the writing style is going to be very fun. It's obviously got like stories, about storytelling, stories within stories type of stuff, which is like my thing, and hopefully that'll also get a little folklore-ish, plus like political intrigue and character-driven and all that good stuff. So this has the potential to like check all of my boxes and be a new favorite, and I am just crossing my fingers that I have guessed right on this one. Plus, it's just a very, very pretty book. This dust jacket is like textured, so not only does it look like engraved, embossed leather, it kind of feels like it, and I've never felt this texture on a book before. It was a little unsettling at first, but I think I like it. And then the last 2 books I have here are 2 ARCs that I got from the bookstore where I volunteer. The first is a middle grade release, and this is called Angel and Bavar. I don't know if I'm saying that right, B-A-V-A-R, by Amy Wilson. Now, I think this was actually published in January of this year in the UK with this cover and the title A Faraway Magic. So if you've seen this book, this is the same one, but it's getting its American release with a different title. This month, I believe this is coming out, yeah, this Tuesday on November 6th in the US. It's pitched kind of as like a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I don't know if it's like actually a retelling or if it's just sort of Beauty and the Beast-ish. It's about a girl who meets this boy who lives in like this enchanted house that features prominently on the cover. It's supposed to be fairy tale-ish middle grade, and it has some pretty strong Goodreads reviews from people who've read it since it was released in the UK. So I thought it was going to be worth checking out. And then the second arc that I have is like all of the hype. I was so excited when I saw we had this, and that is The Winter of the Witch by Katherine Arden. Woohoo! I have it! This is obviously a very anticipated book. It's the third and final book in the Winter Night trilogy, which started with The Bear and the Nightingale and continued with The Girl in the Tower. This is, in case you're unaware, historical fantasy set in 14th century Russia with a whole lot of Russian fairy tales and folklore sort of woven through it. And this comes out in January, I think. I'm not sure it says exactly what date in January, but this is a January release. Oh, there's a sell sheet. Okay, so this is on sale January 8th. So right at the beginning of the year, and I am pumped. So those are all the very, very exciting books that I got my hands on in September and October. Let me know if you've read any of these, if you have any thoughts on them, what you think. Anyhow, I hope you're having a nice day. That is all. Bye for now.